The message arrived on a Tuesday. Dr. Alan Miller was in his lab when his phone buzzed. He ignored it at first, focused on the brain scans on his computer screen. The human brain never ceased to amaze him. How it could change, grow, and adapt even in adulthood. As a neurobiologist specializing in brain plasticity, Alan had dedicated his life to understanding this remarkable organ. The phone buzzed again. With a sigh, Alan picked it up and froze. The message was from the United States Space Agency. They wanted to meet with him immediately. 24 hours later, Alan sat in a government conference room, trying to process what he had just been told. Humans were not alone in the universe. In fact, there was an entire galactic council of intelligent species, and they had finally acknowledged Earth after humans developed faster-than-light travel last year. "So let me get this straight," Alan said, running a hand through his short brown hair. "You want me to go to space and meet aliens?" The government official, a stern woman named Diane, nodded. "We're sending a small delegation to represent Earth at the Galactic Council. You've been selected as our scientific representative." "But why me? I'm not an astronomer or a physicist. I study brains." "That's exactly why," said Captain Lisa Novak, who had been sitting quietly in the corner. She was tall with sharp eyes and the confident posture of someone used to command. The council specifically requested a human neurologist. Alan looked between them. Did they say why? Diane and Lisa exchanged glances. "No," Diane admitted, "but the Galactic Council doesn't make requests without reason." 3 weeks of intense training followed. Alan learned protocol, basic information about the known alien species, and how to use various space technologies. He also got to know his fellow delegates, Captain Lisa Novak, who would lead their mission, and Greg Simmons, a soft-spoken but brilliant diplomat. "Nervous?" Greg asked on the morning of their departure. They stood at the window of the space station, looking down at Earth. "Terrified," Alan admitted. "I keep thinking they chose the wrong person." Greg smiled. "I felt the same way, but they must have had a reason to pick a brain specialist." Their ship was small but impressive, humanity's newest vessel equipped with the recently developed faster-than-light drive. As they prepared for departure, Alan couldn't help but wonder what waited for them among the stars. Why would aliens be interested in human brains? The journey took 5 days. 5 days during which Alan alternated between reviewing his research notes and staring out at the stars, wondering what he would find. He had brought along samples of his work, scans showing how human brains form new neural pathways when learning new skills, healing from injuries, or adapting to new environments. Approaching Celestial Nexus, Lisa announced from the pilot's seat, "Everyone ready to make history." Alan moved to the viewport and gasped. The Celestial Nexus was massive, a sprawling space station that seemed to be made of gleaming silver and blue crystal. Ships of various shapes and sizes moved around it like fish around a coral reef. "It's beautiful," he whispered, "and intimidating." Greg added, "Remember, we're representing all of humanity now." Their ship docked with surprising smoothness. Alan's heart pounded as the airlock hissed. This was it. First contact, though not for humanity as a whole. The Council had been watching Earth for decades but had chosen to make official contact only now. The door slid open, revealing a tall, slender figure with iridescent blue skin and large almond-shaped eyes. "Welcome to the Celestial Nexus," the alien said in perfect English. "I am Ambassador Zixboon of the Eldarian species. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I welcome the representatives of Earth." Alan took a deep breath and stepped forward into a new chapter of human history, unaware that his research would soon become the focus of an interstellar controversy. Ambassador Zixboon led the human delegation through wide corridors filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. Alan tried not to stare, but it was difficult. Some aliens walked on 6 legs, others floated above the ground, and a few seemed to shift their forms as they moved. The Celestial Nexus houses representatives from over 200 species, Zixvoon explained. His voice had a musical quality that made Alan think of wind chimes. "You are the newest to join us." 200, Greg whispered. "We had no idea the galaxy was so populated." Zixvoon's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. Most developing worlds are observed from a distance until they achieve faster-than-light travel. It is a sign that a species has reached sufficient technological maturity. They arrived at their quarters, 3 connected rooms with strange furniture and viewports looking out into space. The gravity felt slightly lighter than Earth's, and the air had a sweet smell to it. "Rest now," said Zixvoon. "Tomorrow you will meet the Council Subcommittee for New Species Integration." After the ambassador left, Lisa checked the rooms for listening devices, while Greg unpacked their diplomatic materials. Alan sat by the viewport, watching alien ships move through the darkness. "It feels like a dream," he said. "Yesterday I was in my lab studying brain scans. Now I'm in a space station with aliens." Lisa joined him. "Stay focused. We need to understand why they specifically requested a neurobiologist." The next morning, they were escorted to a circular chamber where 7 different alien species waited. Zixvoon introduced each one. A massive rocky being called Gortak of the Stoneborn, a pair of floating orbs of light named Ease and K of the Luminari, a reptilian creature called Sith, and others whose names Alan struggled to pronounce. "Please, tell us about your species," said a small gray alien with enormous black eyes. Greg stepped forward with prepared remarks about Earth's history and culture. The aliens listened politely but showed little reaction. Then it was Alan's turn to discuss human biology. "Humans are carbon-based life forms with a centralized nervous system," Alan began, showing holographic images of human anatomy. "Our brain is our central processing organ, containing approximately 86 billion neurons." At the mention of the brain, Alan noticed several aliens exchange glances. Ease and K pulsed more brightly. Sith's tongue flicked out rapidly. "Could you elaborate on your brain development?" asked Gortak, leaning forward. Alan described the basic structure of the human brain, then moved to his specialty. "What makes the human brain remarkable is its plasticity, its ability to change and adapt throughout life. When we learn new skills, our brains physically rewire themselves, creating new neural pathways." The chamber went completely silent. Then all the aliens began speaking at once in their own languages. Zixvoon raised a hand, and they quieted. "Dr. Miller," said Zixvoon carefully, "are you saying that adult humans can generate new neural pathways?" "Of course," Alan replied, confused by their reaction. "It's how we learn, adapt to new environments, or recover from certain injuries. Our brains are constantly changing throughout our lives." More murmurs filled the room. The small gray alien approached and stared at Alan with those large black eyes. In all other known sentient species, it said slowly, neural pathways become fixed after developmental stages. Once maturity is reached, our brains cannot form new connections. Alan looked at Lisa and Greg, who seemed equally surprised. "You mean your brains don't change?" Alan asked. "At all. Minor changes only," said Sith. "Nothing like what you describe." Zixvoon's skin had paled slightly. "The council will need to be informed immediately. This is unexpected." As they left the chamber, Alan could feel the aliens watching him with new intensity. Greg moved closer to him. "I think we just found out why they wanted a neurobiologist," Greg whispered. Alan nodded, suddenly aware that something he had taken for granted, the human brain's ability to adapt and change, might be far more unique in the galaxy than anyone on Earth had ever imagined. Word spread quickly through the celestial nexus. Within hours, aliens of all species were finding reasons to pass by the human quarters, hoping to catch a glimpse of the beings with adaptable brains. Alan felt like an animal in a zoo. "This is getting ridiculous," Lisa said as another group of small, chittering aliens slowed down to peer through their doorway. Zixvoon arrived looking troubled. The full Galactic Council has called an emergency session. Your presence is requested. Is something wrong? Greg asked. Not wrong, Zixwoon replied carefully. But your revelation about human neuroplasticity has caused concern among some council members. They followed Zixwoon to a massive chamber. Hundreds of different species sat in rising tiers around a central platform. The room hummed with conversation that fell silent as the humans entered. An enormous being with 6 arms and skin like polished copper sat at the highest position. I am High Counselor Vex Mara, it announced in a deep, resonating voice. This emergency session has been called to address the revelation about human neural capabilities. Ellen, Lisa, and Greg were directed to stand on the central platform. Ellen felt sweat beading on his forehead under the gaze of so many alien eyes. Dr. Alan Miller, said Vex Mara, you will present detailed information on human neuroplasticity to the full council. Ellen cleared his throat. I didn't prepare a formal presentation. Speak from your knowledge, Zixwoon encouraged. Taking a deep breath, Alan began. He explained how human brains developed, how neurons formed connections, and how these connections changed throughout a person's life. He described how learning a new skill created new neural pathways, how the brain could rewire itself after injury, and how human children could recover from losing entire sections of their brain as other areas took over those functions. As he spoke, the chamber filled with murmurs. Some aliens leaned forward with fascination. Others pulled back in what appeared to be fear. To demonstrate, Alan continued, bringing up holographic images. These are scans of a human brain before and after learning a new language. You can clearly see the formation of new neural connections in these regions. The murmurs grew louder. A tall, spindly alien stood up. This is deeply disturbing, it said. A species with constantly changing neural patterns cannot be predicted or understood. Their minds could develop in any direction. Exactly, said another alien, a floating cloud of purple gas. Think of the potential. A species that can continuously adapt and learn until death. The chamber erupted in argument. Alan looked at Lisa and Greg in confusion. High Counselor Vex Mara raised all 6 arms for silence. It seems we have 2 immediate perspectives forming. The Security Council sees humans as a potential threat due to their unpredictable neural development. The Science Directorate sees an opportunity for remarkable research. A reptilian alien with a neck frill that expanded as it spoke stood up. I represent the Vrax Imperium. We move to classify humans as a monitored species with restricted travel rights and limited access to galactic technology. Their adaptability makes them unpredictable and dangerous. Ellen felt a chill run down his spine. Greg stepped forward to object, but before he could speak, another alien, a shimmering being that seemed made of light, rose. I represent the Medusan Collective. We propose instead that humans be granted research partner status. Their unique neural structure could help us understand consciousness itself. More arguments broke out across the chamber. Species aligned themselves with one side or the other, some calling humans a threat, others a marvel. Vex Mara finally restored order. The Council will need time to consider. Until then, the human delegation will remain as honored guests with limited station access. As they were escorted out, Lisa whispered to Alan, well, that could have gone better. Alan watched the divided council continue to argue. I never thought our brains would cause such a stir. I've been studying neuroplasticity for years, but I always took it for granted. That's the thing about being human, Greg said thoughtfully. We never realize how special we are until we see ourselves through alien eyes. For 3 days, the human delegation was kept in their quarters while the council debated. Alan paced back and forth, feeling like a prisoner rather than a diplomat. Lisa spent her time studying the station's layout from what little she could see through their viewport. Greg tried to engage any passing aliens in conversation, hoping to gain allies. On the 4th day, Zixwoon arrived with news. The council remains divided, the blue-skinned ambassador said, but they have agreed to a compromise for now. They wish to learn more about human neuroplasticity through direct observation and testing. What kind of testing? Lisa asked, immediately suspicious. Nothing invasive, Zixboon assured them. They wish to observe Dr. Miller as he learns new skills and solves problems. They want to see human neuroplasticity in action. Ellen frowned. That sounds reasonable, but neural changes take time to develop. The Council has technology that can scan neural activity in real time, Zixboon explained. Much more advanced than what Earth possesses. After some discussion, the humans agreed. Ellen was escorted to a large laboratory where scientists from various species waited. Their equipment looked nothing like the machines on Earth, sleek, organic shapes that pulsed with soft light. We will begin with a simple test, said a small gray alien that introduced itself as Dr. Nix. Please wear this. The "this" was a thin band that wrapped around Alan's head. It felt cool against his skin, but wasn't uncomfortable. This device will monitor your neural activity without affecting your thought processes, Dr. Nix explained. Now we will present you with a puzzle that requires learning a new skill. The first test was a strange 3D puzzle that followed alien logic. Alan struggled at first, but after 20 minutes he began to see patterns. Within an hour he could solve the puzzle easily. The aliens watched their monitors with growing excitement. Remarkable, one whispered. New neural pathways forming in real time, strengthening with each attempt. Test after test followed. Alan learned alien musical instruments, solved mathematical problems using unfamiliar number systems, and even attempted to speak simple phrases in 5 different alien languages. Meanwhile, Lisa and Greg weren't sitting idle. Lisa had convinced Zixboon to let them observe council meetings, where they discovered the political situation was growing more complex. The Vrax Imperium is gaining support, Greg told Ellen when they returned to their quarters that evening. They're painting humans as potentially dangerous because our brains can change so quickly. They claim we could adapt to become threats faster than they could respond. That's ridiculous, Alan said, rubbing his temples. The testing had left him with a headache. Neuroplasticity doesn't make us dangerous. It makes us unpredictable to them, Lisa pointed out. And the unknown is always scary. Not to everyone, Greg added. The Medusan Collective and the Philosophical Assembly of Aetherians are our strongest supporters. They see human adaptability as the next stage of conscious evolution. Ellen sighed. I'm just a scientist. I never expected my research to become a galactic political issue. The next morning, their situation became more complicated. A new alien, tall, gray-skinned, with 4 arms and a face full of sharp angles, met them at the lab. I am Observer Kraz of the Vrax Imperium, it said coldly. I will be monitoring all further tests on the human. Dr. Nix seemed uncomfortable. The Science Directorate has primary authority here. By order of the Security Council, Kraz interrupted, all human testing must be supervised to ensure galactic safety. Alan exchanged worried glances with Lisa and Greg. Their situation was becoming more political by the hour. What happens next? Alan asked Zixboon quietly. The blue-skinned ambassador's expression was grim. The council factions are hardening their positions. Some see humans as the future of galactic evolution. Others see you as its greatest threat. And which side are you on? Greg asked. Zixboon was silent for a long moment. I believe the truth often lies between extremes, but not everyone shares my patience for discovering it. The mood in the lab changed after Observer Kraz arrived. The alien scientists became more guarded, whispering among themselves instead of openly sharing their findings. Alan felt the weight of Kraz's 4 eyes following his every move. Today we will test how quickly the human adapts to stress, Kraz announced on the 5th day. Dr. Nix looked uncomfortable. That was not part of our approved testing protocol. The Security Council has concerns about human responses to threat situations, Kraz insisted. The test proceeds. Before anyone could object further, The lights in the lab dimmed. A holographic environment formed around Alan, a simulation of a forest with strange alien trees and unfamiliar sounds. Navigate to safety, Kraz instructed. The environment contains hazards. Alan stepped forward cautiously. Something rustled in the holographic underbrush. Suddenly, a creature lunged at him, six-legged with snapping jaws. Alan jumped back with a shout. "It's just a simulation," he reminded himself, heart pounding. "It can't hurt me." But his brain and body responded as if the threat were real. More creatures appeared as he moved through the forest. Each time, Alan's reactions improved. He began to recognize warning signs, certain sounds or movements that came before an attack. Soon he was avoiding the creatures before they even appeared. The alien scientists murmured with excitement as they watched their monitors. Threat response pathways strengthening and adapting in minutes, one said. Remarkable efficiency. When the simulation ended, Alan was sweating but unharmed. Kraz seemed unsatisfied with the results. Increased difficulty. The Vrax observer ordered. Add pain response. Absolutely not, Lisa interrupted, stepping forward. She and Gray had been watching from the sidelines. Our agreement was for non-invasive testing only. An argument broke out between Kraz and the human delegation. It was only stopped when a new message arrived from High Counselor Vexmara. The Council demanded more concrete evidence of human neuroplasticity's potential. They want a human-alien comparative demonstration, Zixvoon explained. Tomorrow, Dr. Miller will attempt the same set of tasks as representatives from other species. The Council will observe directly. That night, as they prepared for this crucial test, an unexpected visitor arrived at their quarters. It was one of the Medusan scientists, a being named Trill whose form shimmered like moonlight on water. "I must warn you," Trill whispered. "The Vrax have altered the test parameters. They plan to introduce elements designed to make humans appear unstable and dangerous." "Why are you telling us this?" Greg asked suspiciously. "Because truth matters more than politics," Trill replied. "And because what we've seen in your species gives hope to many of us." The next day, Alan and 5 aliens from different species gathered in the council chamber. Each was fitted with mural monitors visible on large screens for all council members to see. The first test was a logic puzzle with rules that changed every few minutes. Alan struggled initially but quickly adapted to the shifting patterns. The alien participants became increasingly frustrated as their fixed neural pathways couldn't adjust to the changes. The second test involved learning a new language created specifically for the demonstration. Again, Alan's ability to form new neural connections gave him an advantage. But during the third test, a simulated crisis scenario, Alan noticed something strange. The simulation was becoming increasingly threatening in ways specific to human psychology. The threats targeted human fears, using Earth-specific dangers that the aliens wouldn't recognize as particularly frightening. "They're trying to trigger a panic response," Alan realized. "They want me to overreact so they can claim humans are unstable." Instead of giving in to fear, Alan took a deep breath and focused. His brain scans showed activity in his prefrontal cortex overriding his amygdala's fear response. Where the Vrax expected chaos, they saw control. And in that moment, watching Alan master his own neuroplasticity, several council members began to reconsider their position on humanity. Observer Kraz was not pleased with the test results. The Vrax representative stalked around the chamber, arguing with other council members. The tests were too simple, Kraz insisted. They did not reveal the true danger of human adaptability. High Counselor Vexmara's 6 arms moved in a pattern that seemed to indicate thoughtfulness. Yet the data speaks clearly. The human demonstrated remarkable control over neural responses. While the council debated, Alan sat with Lisa and Gray in a side chamber. He felt exhausted but proud. He had shown that human neuroplasticity was not something to fear. "You did well," Lisa said, patting his shoulder. "You kept your cool even when they tried to provoke you." Greg looked less optimistic. The Vraks won't give up easily. They've been the dominant military power in the galaxy for centuries. They don't like unpredictable elements. The door slid open, and Trill, the Medusan scientist, entered with Dr. Nix. Both looked worried. The Vraks are calling for more extreme measures, Trill said. They claim the controlled tests don't reveal how humans would react in truly dangerous situations. What kind of measures? Alan asked. Before either alien could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. What's happening? Lissa demanded. A voice came over the station's communication system. Security breach in Sector 7. Unknown contaminant detected. All personnel initiate emergency protocols. Dr. Nix's skin turned a pale gray. Sector 7. That's where we are now. Panic erupted in the main council chamber. Aliens rushed for exits, some climbing over others in their haste to escape. Stay calm, Alan told his companions. This could be part of another test. Greg shook his head. Even the Vraks wouldn't disrupt the entire station just to test us. The air vents in their chamber began to emit a thin green mist. Dr. Nix collapsed almost immediately, gasping for breath. Trill's shimmering form flickered weakly. It's affecting them, but not us, Lisa observed. The contaminant must target non-human biology. Alan's mind raced. He remembered seeing medical equipment in the lab where he'd been tested. We need to get them to the lab. There might be something there to help. Working together, the three humans carried the two aliens through increasingly chaotic corridors. Other aliens lay collapsed or struggling to breathe. Some looked at the unaffected humans with suspicion or fear. They think we did this, Greg realized. They think it's a human attack. In the lab, Alan searched frantically for anything that might help. He found respiratory support devices and atmospheric filters. Though the alien technology was unfamiliar, his brain quickly made connections between its structure and possible functions. Try this, he said, attaching a device to Dr. Nix. The small alien's breathing eased slightly. As Alan worked to help the affected aliens, Lisa noticed something on one of the lab monitors. Alan, look at this. The screen showed a security recording of Sector 7 just before the alarm. A Vraks officer was placing a small device in an air vent, the source of the contaminant. They did this deliberately, Lisa said. They created a crisis to see how we would react, and to make other species fear us, Greg added grimly. The door to the lab slid open. Observer Kraz entered, flanked by two armed Vraks guards. Unlike other aliens, they wore protective suits that filtered their air. Humans, Kraz said coldly, you will surrender to Vraks custody immediately. The council has been evacuated, and emergency protocols give security forces full authority. We know what you did, Alan said, stepping forward. We saw the recording. Kraz smiled, a chilling expression on the alien's angular face. What recording? In the confusion, I fear all such evidence will be lost, and the galaxy will hear only how humans caused a deadly incident on their first visit to the celestial nexus. The Vraks raised their weapons, but before they could fire, a weak voice spoke from behind Alan. Not all evidence will be lost. It was Trill, the Medusan. Though weakened, the shimmering alien had managed to access the lab's communication system. I've just transmitted the security footage to all council members' personal devices. The truth is already spreading. Observer Kraz's face twisted with rage. The Vraks official lunged forward to destroy the communication console, but it was too late. The damage was done. Within minutes, emergency teams in protective gear arrived at the lab. They took custody of Kraz and the other Vraks officers. At the same time, they brought equipment to purify the air and treat the affected aliens. You have our gratitude, said the leader of the emergency team to Alan and his companions. While others fled, you stayed to help. Over the next few hours, order was restored to the celestial nexus. The contaminant was identified as a non-lethal but debilitating agent that targeted common respiratory systems found in most council species. Humans, with their unique biology, had been immune. High Counselor Vexmera called an emergency session as soon as the station was safe. The mood was somber as the council members gathered, many still recovering from the effects of the contaminant. "We have witnessed a grave breach of council law," Vexmera announced. "Members of the Vrax Imperium engineered a false crisis, endangering many lives in an attempt to discredit our human guests." The Vrax ambassador, a tall figure with gray skin similar to Kraz, stood to object. "The actions of a few do not represent the Imperium as a whole. We disavow these rogue elements." "Convenient," Lisa whispered to Alan and Greg. Vexmera continued, "What is perhaps most telling is not the Vrax deception, but the human response to it. When faced with a crisis, these humans did not flee or seek advantage. They stayed to help others unlike themselves, using their adaptive minds to operate unfamiliar medical technology." The council chamber filled with a sound that Alan couldn't quite identify, a gentle hum that seemed to vibrate through the air. Zixvoon leaned over to explain. "It is the sound of approval," the blue-skinned ambassador said. "Many who feared your adaptability now see its value." Dr. Nix, recovered enough to attend the session, stepped forward. "If I may address the council, I believe we have been asking the wrong questions about humans. We feared their adaptability because our minds cannot change. But perhaps this is exactly why humans are valuable to the galactic community." Alan listened as Dr. Nix explained how human neuroplasticity could benefit all species. The ability to form new neural pathways might lead to treatments for neural degradation diseases that affected many galactic citizens. The human capacity to adapt to new situations could help solve problems that had stumped fixed-mindset species for generations. "I propose," Dr. Nix concluded, "that instead of fearing humans, we learn from them, and perhaps they might learn from us as well." The tension in the council chamber began to ease. Even some representatives from Vrax-aligned worlds nodded in agreement. Greg, ever the diplomat, saw an opportunity. He stepped forward and addressed the council directly. "Honored representatives," he began, "Earth has only recently joined the galactic community. We have much to learn, and yes, our adaptable minds make us different, but that difference need not divide us." Alan was impressed by Greg's poise. The diplomat continued, speaking of cooperation and mutual benefit. As Greg spoke, Alan noticed something on the neural monitors that still displayed his brain activity. New connections were forming as he listened and processed this complex situation. His brain was adapting in real time to this new paradigm of interspecies politics. When Greg finished, High Counselor Vexmera raised all 6 arms in a gesture that commanded attention. "I believe we have a path forward," the High Counselor announced. "The human capacity for neural adaptation is indeed unique in our experience, but uniqueness is not a crime. It is, perhaps, a gift." For the first time since arriving at the Celestial Nexus, Alan felt hope replacing anxiety. The human brain, something he had studied his entire career but taken for granted, might become the foundation for a new era of galactic cooperation. 2 weeks after the crisis, the Galactic Council gathered for a final vote on humanity's status. The Grand Chamber was packed with representatives from all member species. Alan, Lisa, and Greg sat nervously at the center, awaiting the decision that would shape Earth's future. High Counselor Vexmera called the session to order. "After much deliberation, the time has come to decide on humanity's place in our galactic community." Alan glanced at Zixvoon, who gave a subtle gesture that Alan had learned meant optimism. Over the past 2 weeks, the blue-skinned ambassador had become a trusted friend and guide. "The Council has reviewed all evidence regarding human neuroplasticity," Vexmera continued. "We have witnessed both its potential for adaptation and for compassion. The vote will now commence." One by one, representatives from each species registered their decision. The Medusan Collective voted first, strongly in favor of full membership for humanity. The Aetherians followed with similar support. Several neutral species aligned themselves with the pro-human faction. The Vrax Imperium, facing scandal after the exposed plot, abstained rather than oppose humanity directly. Their influence had been severely damaged by Kraza's actions. When the final votes were tallied, Vexmera raised all 6 arms. It is decided. Earth will be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with special provisions for collaborative research on neural science. Relief washed over Alan. Their mission had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. Earth would join the galactic community as equals, not as subjects or specimens. After the formal proceedings, a celebration was held in one of the Celestial Nexus's grand halls. Aliens of all species approached the humans, curious to learn more about them. Dr. Nix found Alan by a viewport overlooking the stars. "We have wonderful news," the small alien said excitedly. "Initial studies of human neuroplasticity have already yielded promising results for treating Lentari syndrome." "What's Lentari syndrome?" Alan asked. "A neural degradation disease affecting 17 species across the galaxy," Dr. Nix explained. "It causes neural pathways to break down over time, leading to loss of memory and function. By understanding how human brains form new pathways, we may be able to stimulate similar regeneration in affected patients." Ellen was stunned. "You mean our research might help cure an interstellar disease?" "Not just one," said Trill, joining them. The Medusan scientist had recovered fully and had become one of humanity's strongest advocates. "We believe human neuroplasticity may hold keys to treating dozens of neural conditions that have plagued our civilizations for millennia." Later that evening, as the celebration continued, Greg received a message from Earth. The governments of their home planet had approved the Council membership agreement and were already preparing for increased interstellar cooperation. "We'll need to establish a permanent embassy here," Greg told Alan and Lisa, "and research exchanges, cultural programs. There's so much to do. And you'll be at the center of it all," Lisa said to Alan, the neurobiologist who changed humanity's place in the galaxy. Alan shook his head. "I just studied something that every human takes for granted. It was pure luck that our brains turned out to be special." Zixtun, overhearing, joined their conversation. "Perhaps not luck, but evolution. Your species evolved on a planet of constant change and challenge. Your brains adapted accordingly." As the celebration wound down, Alan found himself alone at the viewport, gazing out at the stars. From one of those distant points of light, Earth continued its journey around the sun, its people still unaware of how unique they truly were. Tomorrow, Alan would begin the journey home, carrying news that would forever change humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. Scientists, diplomats, and explorers would soon follow in his footsteps, forging new connections between Earth and the galactic community. And it had all begun with something as simple as the human brain, an organ that every person on Earth possessed, yet none had realized just how extraordinary it was until seen through alien eyes. Alan smiled at the thought. In a vast galaxy of wonders, sometimes the most amazing discoveries were the ones we carried within ourselves all along.